What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2022 predictions, going through the Power 5 conferences. The Big 12 is up next. Going to show you how the standings would look based off of my predictions, and then predict the Big 12 championship. We'll start at the bottom with Kansas. I have Kansas finishing in last place in the Big 12. I do think they win a conference game this year. I've got them at 1-8 in the Big 12, 3-9 overall. Again, I don't think this team's going to be terrible. I think they'll beat Duke, get a Power 5 win there. I think they'll beat Tennessee Tech, and then I have them beating Iowa State at home. Actually starting the season off 3-2, starting off with a winning record before losing the rest of their games. So that's what I've got for Kansas. Again, a team that I think is going to be improved a little bit from where they were last year. A lot coming back. And remember, they beat Texas last year, so they showed that they are capable. Ahead of them at number 9, I've got Iowa State. I've seen some predictions for this team much higher than this, but I'm not seeing it. I mean, it's like a rebuild year for them, and they had a disappointing season last year. They lose a ton of production off of that team. I've got them going 4-8, just 2-7 in the Big 12. A couple of conference wins. I have them beating Kansas State and West Virginia at home, just because, I mean, I think they're good enough to get a couple of wins in the conference, and I do have them losing to Iowa in the non-conference. And again, with some of these teams, I've done individual videos, and we talked a lot more in those videos, about why I had them, where I had them. But I think about half the teams in the Big 12 I didn't do a video for. So Iowa State, Kansas here at the bottom. Got a three-way tie ahead of these teams, and we'll start with Texas Tech. Texas Tech at 4-5 in the conference, 6-6 overall. This is a team that I think will be pretty good this year. They'll be competitive. I've got them beating Murray State, Houston, Texas, West Virginia, Kansas, and Iowa State. Texas, of course, will be the big win for them in the rivalry there at home. Losing to NC State in the non-conference, then also losing to Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma. So again, a Texas Tech team that I think will be competitive in the Big 12. And I tell you what, the Big 12 is so wide open. I don't feel confident at all about my predictions, to be honest with you. A lot of unknowns with Oklahoma and Texas. Baylor and Oklahoma State, can they do it again? You look at TCU and Kansas State, those teams, West Virginia, those teams have potential. And so I think these three teams probably don't have that great of a chance to get to the Big 12 championship, but the other 7 teams, I think any of those teams could get to the Big 12 championship. It wouldn't surprise me. Of course, Baylor was a big surprise last year. I think we could see a surprise this year. But anyways, let's move on to our next team. Kansas State also at 4-5 in the Big 12, 7-5 overall. I got them winning all their non-conference games, including a game against Missouri at home. I have them beating Texas Tech at home, Oklahoma State and Texas at home, and Kansas at home. So winning 4 home games there. Actually, I've got them winning all 4 of their home games in Big 12 play and losing their 5 road games. But a couple of big wins in there with Oklahoma State and Texas. I think this Kansas State team is capable of that. I mean, how good is Adrian Martinez going to be? He was so inconsistent at Nebraska. If we get the good Adrian Martinez, this is a veteran team, a team that I think can get a couple of big wins, and that's what I'm picking. And then also at 4-5, I've got West Virginia. I've got them going 6-6 overall, 4-5 in the conference. The tiebreakers, the reason they're ahead is because all the teams these 3 teams are 1-1 against each other, and then you go to the top of the standings, and I don't want to give away that, but West Virginia had a win over the top team. The other 2 teams did not. And you'll probably figure that out if I read off the teams. But I've got them losing to Pittsburgh on the road, but beating West Virginia. I think they split those 2 non-conference games, and then also losing to Texas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State, beating TCU, Oklahoma, and Kansas State, and then also Kansas as well. So those are the big wins for West Virginia. A team that I think is really interesting with JT Daniels at quarterback. It's just hard to predict what this West Virginia team is going to do. I brought in some transfers that I think are going to really help them out. Again, these 3 teams, and I have Texas Tech at 4-5, just like Kansas State and West Virginia, but I do think that West Virginia and Kansas State are overall going to be a little bit better than Texas Tech. But again, in the standings, all teams going 4-5. Moving on to the top 5, I've got Oklahoma State at number 5, going 8-4 overall, 5-4 in the conference. We've actually got a tie here for this next spot. But, I've talked about it. I think this team will be good, but I think they're a little bit overrated coming into the season. I'm really worried about their back 7. Yeah, they're going to have a really good defensive line, but replacing those 2 great linebackers, really not much experience coming back. in the secondary. I have some concerns about Oklahoma State. And it's going to come down to Spencer Sanders. Can they open things up? Can they throw the ball more effectively? If they can, they can win the Big 12. If they can't, I think they're sitting there with a few losses, and they don't get to the Big 12 championship game. I've got them losing to Baylor on the road, TCU on the road, Kansas State on the road, and Oklahoma on the road. All 4 tough games on the road, and so I've got Oklahoma State here at 8-4, and I did a video, I think, on all of these top 5 teams. If you want to go back and watch, maybe I didn't do it on TCU, but I've got TCU at 8-4 as well, 5-4 in the conference. Going to be a really interesting team to watch this year. I think they've got some talent on the roster. New coaching staff going to shake things up. I think the offense will be better with Sonny Dykes there. I think they're going to be much more explosive on that side of the ball. And they've added some transfers that I think are going to help them out. I have them beating Colorado, Tarleton State, South Alabama, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, and Iowa State. All of those games in the Big 12 are at home except for Kansas. So they've got a pretty favorable schedule with the way it kind of works out there in the Big 12. So TCU at 8-4, maybe a little bit of a surprise team this year. Watch out for the Horned Frogs. Not really much expected of them. I think they could surprise some people. At number 3, I've got Texas going 6-3 in the conference, 8-4 overall. Losing to Alabama, of course, in the non-conference. Losing to Texas Tech on the road, Oklahoma State on the road, and Kansas State on the road. So beating Oklahoma, beating Baylor, 2 games at home, 2 big wins, beating TCU at home as well. It's an interesting team. I mean, I think offensively they're going to be really, really good, but they were good offensively last year. It was the defense that let them down. Sometimes the offensive line let them down when they needed them, and I just don't know if they did enough to address that to where they're going to jump into the Big 12 championship game, but I do think they'll be better, and I've got them at 8-4. Moving on to the top 2, I've got Baylor at number 2, 7-2 in the conference, 9-3 overall. I've got the Bears losing to Oklahoma and Texas, both on the road, and then also losing to BYU on the road in the non-conference. I think they beat everyone else. It's a team that should be pretty solid. I think that the defense will be really good, maybe the best defense in the Big 12. They should be able to run the football, although they are replacing their top running back from last season. But Blake Shapen comes in and I think gives them something in the passing game. And I think Baylor is right back in the Big 12 championship game, but this year I have them playing Oklahoma. I've got the Sooners finishing at the top because I do have them beating Baylor in the head-to-head, so they would have the tiebreaker, 7-2 in the conference, 9-3 overall. I do have them losing to Nebraska on the road in the non-conference, and then also losing to Texas, and on the road at West Virginia. I just think that's a game that could trip them up. It's right between Baylor and Oklahoma State on the road, tough place to play. I think Oklahoma will slip up in that one. So I've got them going 9-3, and we talk about all the individual games. It's really just about the records at the end of the day. I make my record predictions and kind of go back and fill in all the games. But Oklahoma at 9-3, enough to get to the Big 12 championship where they will face Baylor in a rematch. Of course, every game in the Big 12 championship is going to be a rematch. But Oklahoma-Baylor, I think Oklahoma wins the first time. This time I think it'll be really close. Going to be a good game. Low-scoring defensive battle. We know what we're going to get from Baylor's defense. Brent Venables, how much will he improve Oklahoma's defense? That'll be the question. But I think offensively, Oklahoma just has the firepower that Baylor doesn't quite have. The skill positions just not as good for Baylor, replacing a lot there. And I think Oklahoma's offense a little bit better equipped to face a good defense. And Oklahoma does it again. They beat Baylor twice, and the Sooners win the Big 12 championship. That is my prediction. That's how I think the standings will look. And again, I have the Oklahoma Sooners winning the Big 12 championship in 2022. Would love to get your thoughts, your predictions, your thoughts on my predictions. Give them to me down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.